Thank you, Linda, for that overview. Indeed, the agricultural sector is absolutely a centerpiece of the California economy, and water reliability is obviously critical to its production. But California has been no stranger to drought for the past several years. And with climate change advancing quickly, the impact is becoming more and more extreme. We all understand this. But most people outside the agriculture industry don't understand all the complexities of the agricultural ecosystem and the supply chains that it feeds. So I'm happy to welcome someone with deep insight into this critical part of our economy who can help enlighten the rest of us. Undersecretary of the California Department of Food and Agriculture, Christine Birdsong, thank you for being with me today. Forgive the metaphor, but you really have such deep roots in this industry. Before joining CDFA, you were a senior VP for the Sun Valley Rice Company, and you've served as general counsel for the National Cotton Council of America, both very water-intensive crops, I might add. And you've served as counsel for the Committee on Agriculture for the United States House of Representatives. No small deal. We really couldn't talk to someone with a better perspective on this topic of climate change and how really to mitigate those impacts on our small agricultural businesses. Linda gave us a high-level look at the economic contribution of agriculture to our economy and how the governor is trying to improve our water resiliency. I'd like for you to help us understand more deeply, how does chronic drought change the economics of the agriculture industry?
Changes it in a lot of significant ways. But first I have to say that our California farmers and ranchers are really good at pivoting from flood to drought. They're just used to that in the state of California. But with climate change, we are seeing extremes that are almost impossible to prepare for. CDFA sponsored a study that UC Merced did, and they took a look at the 2021 drought and looked at all of the economic impacts from that. And what they found is that they estimated there were about $1.1 billion in direct losses to California's agricultural economy. There were 8,750 full and part-time jobs that were lost in our rural communities, and 395,000 acres of agricultural land had to be fallowed.
Wow.
Yeah, those are incredible statistics. But when we're looking at the economic impacts, I think it's also really important to acknowledge the human impacts behind those numbers. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about what it means to lose your job, the mental health impacts, not just for farmers, but for farm workers as well, who suddenly, they often live paycheck to paycheck. Suddenly, they're not able to pay rent. They're not able to pay for utilities or childcare or food. And when you think about it, our whole network of our California Association of Food Banks, they do a great job, but there are some remote areas of our state that they just cannot reach. So that was something that we learned during the drought as well. And then there are healthcare impacts that I always want to touch on. For example, paying for those medications that so many Californians need on a day-to-day basis. If you're not getting a paycheck, you can't do that. You can't go see a doctor for preventative care, let alone when you've got a nagging issue that needs attention. So I always want to make sure that when we talk about the economic impacts, that we're also acknowledging the very real human impacts as well.
Wow. And my family's from the Central Valley, and my parents worked in fields in their youth. I understand exactly what you're talking about. Long days, and the human impact is incredible.
Absolutely.
So this year, my office, as you know, will be administering the Small Agricultural Business Drought Relief Program, which in addition to being a mouthful, will provide grants of $60,000 to $100,000 to qualified businesses to offset losses related to the drought. The qualification process is going to involve comparing the amount of loss in gross receipts or gross profit in 2022 to the last normal year of planting in 2019. And standing up this program has been an education for myself and my team. And one of the things that we've learned about this sector is the number and the intensity of ancillary businesses that depend on the farmers themselves. I think most of us, when we think agriculture, we only think about the farmer. So I don't think the layperson, like myself, in this respect, do we really take the time to think about farmers being part of a supply chain? And so I'd like you to draw that picture for us. Help us understand.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that question, because you're right. I think when most people think of California agriculture, we think of beautiful fields of red, ripe tomatoes, or sunflowers blowing in the breeze. But there is absolutely no production agriculture in the state of California without those companies that are developing seed varietals that can grow in all the different soils and climates that we have in this magnificent state, or the businesses that sell those seeds or other ag inputs that are necessary, like fertilizer, or we have ag aviation, which helps us to disperse all those seeds over the huge tracts of land that we farm on. We also have farm managers, labor management companies. We have mills, we have warehouses, we have food processing facilities, we have refrigeration and packaging facilities, trucking, logistics, right? The unsung heroes that we were all looking towards during the supply chain crisis. And then, of course, all of the mechanics we need to fix ag machinery. There is this entire ecosystem around agriculture that not only supports our production of food, but also depends on it. So that when we idle ag acreage, we are also idling agricultural businesses.
Wow. Idle businesses mean no employees are showing up for work.
Idle businesses mean no work for people. This means unemployment. This means economic impacts in communities, in rural communities that support agriculture and growing food, not just for California, but we grow food for the rest of the country. We grow food for the world. Don't forget that we export 40% of what we grow here in California.
Wow.
Yeah. We are connected globally, absolutely.
So, Christine, let's talk about the interactions between your agency and GoBiz in the creation of this program, the Small Business Agricultural Drought Relief Program. And I think if I recall correctly, this is one of the first issues that came before you when you took this job, right?
That's right. That's right.
So tell us the origin story of this program and why it's so significant.
Absolutely. It was shortly after I started working for CDFA, and Secretary Ross was literally losing sleep over the impacts of the drought, not only on our farms, but on the communities that support the farms.
Yes.
So if I remember correctly, I think she actually brainstormed this with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And then the two of you kind of handed it off to us staff. And, I think the idea was to look at programs that had already been successful that helped small businesses. So naturally, that was the COVID Small Business Relief Program that was so helpful to thousands of California businesses, right?
Yes.
So we looked at that and we tailored it very specifically to meet the unique needs for our California small and medium-sized agricultural businesses, with special focus on our small, historically underserved farmers who are also experiencing some really unique challenges as a result of the drought.
Yes.
So thank you for the brilliant idea, and huge thank you to your staff who are just absolutely amazing. We're really excited to see this program launch.
Thank you. So are we. You know, helping small businesses is what we do. It's the core of our mission. And just to wake up and really understand the impact of agriculture and how important these small businesses are to our economy, it's an eye-opener for us. I mean, it's a new opportunity to serve a new set of businesses, and that is what we love to do.
We are so grateful. Help us spread the word. We try to talk about agriculture and our ag businesses and everything we contribute to the state, again, to the nation, to the world. We preach that gospel every chance we can get, and now it's your turn to go out there and do the same.
Well, I'm going to say amen to that. So our connection is specifically this drought relief program. But our topic here today is really about mitigating the effects of climate change. And I know from our office's involvement in disaster recovery work, while drought remains a huge worry, there's also great concern over the impact of this year's catastrophic winter storms. So for most people, once it stops raining and the flood waters recede, the disaster seems far away. But farmers are going to be dealing with the impact of those storms all year long.
That's right.
Help us understand that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You know, we love the rains. Our reservoirs are all looking really healthy for the growing seasons to come. Our snowpack is at 251% of normal for this time of year, which is really important for agriculture because we depend on that snow melt to irrigate our crops later in the season. But the timing of these floods and the areas that they impacted, specifically the central coast of California and agriculture in that area, both the timing of the flood and then, of course, cleaning up after it has had some really serious impacts. You know, the damage that we saw, we learned a lot about, broken fences, damaged irrigation pipes, in some areas, lost to the topsoils that are so important. That's where all the nutrients really are. And a lot of crops actually had to delay their planting season, which means that their harvest is going to be a little bit off, which may or may not be a big deal. But like we talked about earlier, the weather in California is so unpredictable now and so extreme that could really be a problem come harvest time. Some of our crops are lucky enough to have kind of multiple growing seasons throughout the year, but even those crops missed an entire window to do that one growing season. They will have a couple of others, but this means an economic loss to the producers. And again, it's a pause in the employment for those farm workers. So yes, we are going to be seeing the impacts of these floods arguably through the next 6 months or so.
So am I hearing you correctly? We have gone from one extreme condition with not enough water.
Yep.
And having idle acreage because there wasn't enough water to plant full crops.
That's right.
To now a condition where our topsoil and the quality of that land that's been sitting idle is now eroding before our eyes because there's too much water.
Yes. It can be fixed. We will be back in business, absolutely, but it throws the timing off. And again, those are economic challenges to our ag sector.
So our fall squash may not be in the fall.
Well, it might be fall-winter squash. But I did want to say that, the impacts of the flood are on top of economic impacts from the drought. So our recovery efforts, whether it's for one extreme or another, really do feel almost continuous as of late anyways.
Yes. I was just saying that earlier. I remember as a kid, we had a bad year and then a bunch of good years and then a bad year and a bunch of good years.
That's the way it's supposed to work,
Now we are one economic recovery cycle after another, one extreme condition after another. And it's a wonder that our small farmers can stay in business at all.
Well, They are resilient, they are entrepreneurial, and they are the best in the world at what they do.
Right on, because California leads.
That's right.
So one of the themes of this video series is economic equity, and of course, extending services to our underserved businesses and underserved communities, which is really baked into CalOSBA's core mission. CDFA also has a farm equity program.
That's right. Yes, very proud of it.
It delivers direct grants for socially disadvantaged small-scale and medium-scale farmers and producers, right, to address immediate drought relief concerns and eligible expenses, and a separate technical assistance program. I know you're proud of that.
Yes, we are.
So before I let you go, because I know you've spent a considerable amount of time with us today, I want to give you the opportunity to really talk about the California Underserved and Small Producers Program.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a program that we are really proud of at CDFA. Much like our small business Ag Drought Grant Relief Program, our CUSP program, which is what we call it for short, is built on a previous CUSP program that came into being really to address our small and underserved farmers' challenges with COVID. Right? It's just like our small business COVID program. And that program was really trying to help them get through the impacts of the pandemic, things like, losing their traditional supply chains, like not being able to go to farmers markets, or even having ag labor shortages due to illnesses or health quarantines, right? So we had our COVID CUSP program that was really successful and helpful. We retooled that to address drought impacts for small, socially disadvantaged farmers. And we've kind of got two pots of money that we're working from here. The first is for technical assistance, which provides help for these farmers in terms of business management, financial and marketing strategies to help build their resilience and really kind of help sustain them through the drought, which we always are hoping is a temporary blip on the screen. So that was one aspect, is the technical assistance, which is really important. The other aspect of the CUSP program is providing direct relief to these farmers and providing reimbursement for costs of the drought that they have had to absorb and just really don't have the margin to. We're talking about things like hauling water for livestock to get to where the livestock are, where normally they would have ponds to drink from, or helping these producers pay for higher energy costs. We all were paying higher energy costs, but particularly people in the ag sector during the drought, that inflation for them was just absolutely huge. Also helping them to pay for things like production losses due to having to fallow their ag acreage. So that program has been focused 80% on historically underserved farmers and ranchers, 100% for small-scale producers in the state of California. And I always have to go back to that technical assistance, which is so important. We were able to pay for 3 UC Ag and Natural Resource small farm advisors to help our small farmers. We also were able to pay for 6 new community outreach and education specialists that speak languages other than English to really help us reach that vulnerable population that needs help, but it's often difficult for them to access all the programs that we have at CDFA and now at GoBiz as well. So yes, we are absolutely really proud of the CUSP program and how we are able to retool it, adjust it to help our small and socially disadvantaged farmers in times of need.
Wow. How lucky is the agricultural community to have you as one of its champions. And I am just proud that my office gets an opportunity to work with you and your team and to support that mission.
Me too.
Just blown away by what we've learned thus far, and I know we're going to learn more. And I just really want to say to our small farmers and producers, we see you. And we welcome you in the small business community that we have been supporting for so long.
That is great to hear. Thank you. I know they will be grateful to hear that as well. And I just want to thank you for your partnership and for your leadership. And I know that this Small Ag Business Drought Relief Program is just the first of many projects I hope that we get to work on together.
Undersecretary Birdsong, this has been such an education today. And I want to thank you again for spending this time with me and our viewers. My office is really looking forward to a new way of engaging with the agricultural community, which I think has really been left out of the small business story. And so we are looking forward to serving them with the drought grants this year, and just really want to thank you for the partnership and the opportunity to work on this program and to craft it together to serve your constituency that now gets to be mine.
It's your constituency. Thank you. That is music to my ears. Thank you. We are excited as well.
This is Tara Lynn Gray, Director of CalOSBA, reminding you that supporting small strengthens us all.
Hello, my name is Jean Coleman, and I'm a program manager at CalOSBA, overseeing many of our grant programs. We all know that small businesses were hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, with hundreds of thousands of businesses permanently shuttered and many more on unstable financial footing. In 2021, small business revenue in California dropped more than 30%, with the hardest hit sector, leisure and hospitality, down over 70%. It's been a very long and difficult 3 years for many of us. Our lives have changed in dramatic and permanent ways. But with hospitalizations and deaths dramatically reduced due to the state's vaccination and public health efforts, the governor ended the COVID-19 state of emergency on February 28th and announced a plan to maintain California's operational preparedness for the next phase of the pandemic. California has led the nation's economic recovery from COVID-19, and a major part of that success lies in our commitment to supporting workers and businesses. It has been important to the governor and to the legislature to invest in small business resiliency through relief grant programs, including the Small Business COVID-19 Relief Grant Program which was the largest state-level COVID-19 relief grant program in the country, as well as the microbusiness grant program. Even though the state of emergency is over, the governor and the legislature are still committed to mitigating ongoing impacts of COVID-19, including through a commitment to ensuring a strong and resilient workforce. Even now, new policies give workers the time they need to take care of themselves and their loved ones. To this end, COVID-19 supplemental paid sick leave was reestablished in Senate Bill 95 and then extended in Senate Bill 114. These laws required employers with more than 25 employees to cover COVID-19 supplemental paid sick leave through December 31st, 2022, for workers who got sick, had to quarantine, or had to care for a family member. These laws demonstrate a commitment to the health and safety of California workers as part of COVID-19 recovery. But we know that small businesses also experienced financial strain to provide that supplemental paid sick leave. Assembly Bill 152, authored by the Committee on Budget and Fiscal Review, established the California Small Business and Nonprofit COVID-19 Supplemental Paid Sick Leave Relief Grant Program and authorized $250 million to help offset those costs. The program is housed within CalOSBA, and its goal is to assist qualified small businesses and nonprofits with between 26 and 49 employees. Employers with payroll records showing how much they spent on paid sick leave related to COVID-19 may be able to recoup those costs through the program. The program is due to launch this spring, and we know a lot of business owners are anxiously waiting for it. So stay tuned to our website for more information very soon. It's an example of how California finds ways to balance direct and substantive support to our small businesses, along with workplace protections for employees in the face of public health threats. Next up, you'll hear my colleague, Shalon Garcia, speak more about COVID-19 recovery as it relates to small businesses.
Thanks, Jean. I'm Shalon Garcia, and I head the team that administers these programs. CalOSBA has been the office responsible for many of the large-scale direct relief grant programs, like the COVID-19 Supplemental Paid Sick Leave Relief Grant Program that Jean just described. We're proud to have distributed more than $4 billion in direct relief to more than 500,000 small businesses over the past 3 years. But with so many employees back in our regular workplaces, we know that employers still have obligations to their employees to minimize the risk of COVID-19 infections. We also want to point out that there are several new post-emergency regulations that are still in effect, and that small business employers must be careful to observe. The regulations include Assembly Bill 2693, Assembly Bill 1751, and the COVID-19 Prevention Non-Emergency Regulations. Assembly Bill 2693 was authored by Assemblymember Eloise Reyes. This bill is called the Employer Mandatory COVID-19 Reporting, and it extends existing deadlines for reporting on workplace outbreaks through January 2025. The mandatory reporting of COVID-19 is an essential piece of our collective pandemic response, and it has proven invaluable to keeping workers safe and has saved countless lives. Assembly Bill 2693 requires employers to notify workers of any workplace exposures so they can take the necessary steps to protect themselves and their families. Another COVID-19 employee protection is Assembly Bill 1751, sponsored by California Assemblymember Tom Daly. This is the same kind of logic as Assembly Bill 2693. It extends the protections created by Senate Bill 1159, workers' compensation for critical workers, by 1 year, and it goes through to January 1st, 2024. This affects a limited group of employers, but we have to remember that the first responders, such as peace officers, firefighters, emergency medical technicians, and hospital personnel, continue to contract the virus at a much higher rate than the average Californian. These critical workers are still interacting with numerous individuals and are at a higher risk for contracting COVID-19. In fact, studies have found that 42% of COVID-19 claims were filed by workers in frontline occupations like healthcare workers. For most small business employers, the most important new set of regulations is the COVID-19 Prevention Non-Emergency Regulations, overseen by the Occupational Safety and Health Standards Board. These regulations took effect in January 2023 and will remain in effect for 2 years after the effective date. The most important parts of the COVID-19 prevention regulations include the following important changes. Employers are no longer required to maintain a standalone COVID-19 prevention plan. Instead, employers can include their COVID-19 procedures as part of their written injury and illness prevention program. Employers must do the following: provide effective COVID-19 hazard prevention training to employees, provide face coverings when required by the California Department of Public Health, and provide respirators upon request, identify COVID-19 health hazards, and develop methods to prevent transmission in the workplace, investigate and respond to COVID-19 cases and certain employees after close contact, make testing available at no cost to employees, including all employees in the exposed group during an outbreak or a major outbreak, notify affected employees of COVID-19 cases in the workplace, maintain records of COVID-19 cases, and immediately report serious illnesses to CalOSBA and to the local health department when required. Employers must now report major outbreaks to CalOSBA. As Jean explained, COVID-19 prevention regulations no longer require employers to pay employees while homesick with COVID-19 from work, unless mandated by private company sick leave policies. These 3 years have been tough, and we at CalOSBA saw that impact up close. Employers have had a lot to carry, especially as small businesses, where even small-scale disruptions can have devastating results. But the fact is that California's COVID-19 death rate was among the lowest in the nation. Our gross domestic product, or GDP, grew faster than the national GDP between 2019 and 2022. California consistently makes choices that are both and, not either or, and we demonstrate that this kind of reasoning works in the real world.
This is Terralyn Gray, Director of CalOSBA, reminding you that supporting small strengthens us all.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Radman, Deputy Director of CalOSBA. I want to thank you all again for joining us and allowing us to share policies that are so critical to our small businesses. Today, I will be going over 4 policies that impact how California employers operate their businesses and that also represent our state's values and culture, values that insist on fairness for all and strong worker protections. The 4 policies I will be covering are Assembly Bill 1287, which addresses price discrimination on gender, Senate Bill 1162, which addresses employment, salaries, and wages for pay equity, Senate Bill 972 addresses the California Retail Food Code, and Senate Bill 1126, which addresses the expansion of CalSavers retirement savings. On September 27th of last year, Governor Newsom signed a measure to underscore California's commitment to pay equity and supporting women. This set of measures included Assembly Bill 1287, authored by Assemblymember Bauer Kahan, which prohibits the discriminatory pink tax on products marketed to women. The phrase pink tax refers to the fact that products marketed to women are frequently priced higher than the comparable products marketed to men. For just one example, companies and retailers used to mark up the price on pink shavers that are specifically designed to be marketed to women. Even if the price is just marginally higher, if you calculate all the hidden pink taxes that women pay at the cash register, then it adds up to an unfair burden for many women. For many years, this burden was not only unfair, but unrecognized by consumer regulatory agencies. That's no longer true in California, and we can be proud of this law because it hits to the core of what it means to build a California for all. It's one step in the right direction in minimizing the inequities that women face on a daily basis and a true representation of our state's values about basic fairness. But we know there is much more work to be done, which takes me to Senate Bill 1162, authored by Senator Lynn. Despite the progress we've made, the gender pay gap persists, which results in billions of dollars in lost wages for women in California. I want to remind us that women still only make 88 cents to every dollar earned by a man, and that gap is even greater for women of color. Senate Bill 1162 builds on a measure previously signed by the governor in 2020, which will increase the transparency requirements. This law requires the disclosure of salary ranges on jobs listed so that job seekers will have access to the salary information. By making the salary range for a job public, the employer gives candidates the opportunity to see how their salary offer compares to the minimum and maximum salary for that position. This way, people are paid based on the advertised value of the work to be done, but not based on who they are. This is how the law holds businesses more accountable to fair pay practices and will improve pay equity amongst not only women, but also people of color, LGBTQI+, and other minority groups that have far too long been shortchanged on wages behind the scenes for the same title and same level of work. Again, both of these laws are pivotal to increasing the equity for all in our state and reflects the Californian insistence that our laws and practice reinforce basic fairness. Moving on to Senate Bill 972, authored by Senator Gonzalez. We know and have come to love our local street vendors. They absolutely bring a sense of home, culture, and definitely some of the tastiest foods in our state. More importantly, they are impactful drivers to California's small businesses, community, and economy. This law makes it easier for street vendors to obtain local health permits, creating more accessible pathways to starting and growing their business. It also now allows cottage food operations to sell home-cooked foods directly to the public, and a micro-enterprise home kitchen allows an individual to operate a restaurant in their private residence. This may not sound like an equity measure on the face of it, but it supports a low capital entry point to entrepreneurship for people who might not have the means to go straight to a leased storefront or even a commercial kitchen. This is why it's a momentous step forward for our state's entrepreneurs and creates more equitable access to this industry. Remember, shopping and dining local gives 2/3 of every $1 back to the community, and street vendors will undoubtedly be a driving force in their local economies. Lastly, we want to bring small business employers up to speed on Senate Bill 1126, authored by Senator Cortez. Existing law has already created something called CalSavers Retirement Savings. The state provides an easy-to-operate portal to allow employers of all sizes to allow their eligible employees to contribute a portion of their salary or wages to our retirement savings program account. Workers can opt out of the program, but that's their choice. Senate Bill 1126 expands the program's mandate over time so that all Californians can have a path to equitable financial security in retirement. As of January 1st, 2023, the definition of an eligible employer includes businesses with 5 or more employees that do not already offer a retirement savings program. Once the CalSavers Retirement Savings Board opens the program for enrollment, they'll have 36 months to create a payroll deposit savings arrangement and help their employees to participate. By December 31st, 2025, the law will expand even more to require the participation of businesses with even just a single eligible employee. The CalSavers requirements still exclude sole proprietors, self-employed individuals, or other business entities that do not employ any individual other than the owners of the business. And with that, I want to thank all of our viewers. If you're one of our valued partners, thank you for your ongoing input into how to make California a better place to grow, manage, and scale small businesses. If you are a small business owner, thank you for the blood, sweat, and tears we know that it takes to run your business. At CalOSBA, we remind everyone we talk to every single day about the importance of our small business sector to our state's economy, to the vibrancy and livability of our communities, and to our culture. One of the lessons of COVID-19 is that entrepreneurs like you are not only business leaders, you are role models and community leaders. It is our honor to represent your voice and to support your success. We do what we do because of the inspiration you provide. Thank you all for being part of this year's policy changes, each of which takes us one step closer towards Governor Newsom's vision of a California for all. And now back to Director Gray to close out CalOSBA's first annual Policy Day.
This is Lynn Gray, Director of CalOSBA, reminding you that supporting small strengthens us all.